How are you today? I hope this video finds you well and anxious to hear the story from God's Word. Do you remember a couple of weeks ago we talked about Hannah and how hard waiting was? But we made the point that God answered her prayer in His perfect timing. Well, today we're going to talk about an Old Testament woman who also was in the middle of God's perfect timing. As a matter of fact, our verse for today comes from the book of Esther, chapter 4, verse 14, where it says, "It is possible that you came to be queen for just such a time as this." Esther was a young girl who had lost both of her parents. She was taken captive into a foreign country. Actually, she may have been born there, but her family had been taken captive. So she was a Jewish girl living in Babylon. Next week, Lord willing, you'll hear about Daniel, which you just heard about in VBS too. And he was a captive in Babylon. We're going to see some of the same principles governing the life of Esther as they do Daniel. Esther, because she had lost her parents, was being raised by her cousin Mordecai. Now, Mordecai came home one day and said, "Esther, the king has just gotten rid of the queen by kicking her out of the palace. And he's going to have a sort of beauty contest. And because you're so beautiful, I know the soldiers are going to take you from me and take you to the palace and make you be in this contest." You see, this kind of contest, this beauty contest, went against everything that the Israelite people and the Israelite women would have desired in order to please God. But Mordecai said, "Number one, I believe God has chosen you to be in this, and you are beautiful. And number two, don't tell anybody you're a Jew." Remember, the Jews had been taken captive, so they were basically slaves in the land. And Mordecai said, if you tell anyone you're a Jew, your life could be in danger, rather than you having the God-given opportunity to become a queen. So Esther was taken by the soldiers. She was made to go live at the palace. She was made to go through a year's worth of beauty treatments. And then she and other girls were presented before the king. Through a long series of events, the king chose Esther to be the queen. She was highly honored and favored. But the story takes a bad turn. You see, there was a man named Haman who was one of the king's advisors. Haman was not a good man, and Haman had a deep hatred for the Jews. He put a plot together against the king and against the Jews. So let's look at some backstory. Haman was the trusted advisor of the king. And Haman did something nice for the king and thought he should be honored by the king. But another event was happening while Haman was all in himself, thinking all these cocky thoughts about himself. There was a conspiracy to kill the king. Well, Mordecai, remember Esther's cousin, he discovered the plot to kill the king and reported it. And eventually the king found out that it was Mordecai who had saved his life. And so he said to his advisor Haman, now remember, Mordecai was a Jew and Haman hated the Jews, but the king said to Haman, "What should be done for the man that the king wants to honor?" Well, Haman thought it was he himself. So he thought of all these wonderful things that should be done for the man the king wanted to honor. Well, he could have spit nails when he found out it was Mordecai that the king wanted to honor. Haman threw fits and got madder than ever at the Jews. So Haman devised a plot. He went to the king and said that no one should be respectful of anyone except the king himself. Now he knew that the Jews always revered and respected their God above everyone else. They did not bow down to other men. They bowed only before the Lord and served him. So when word went out that all the Jews were to be killed because they were viewed as being disrespectful to the king, Mordecai came to Esther and said, Esther, you're the queen. You've got to save our nation. You've got to save all the Jews. And she was like, I can't. I haven't even been allowed in to see the king, because even the queen couldn't go see the king without the king asking for her to come. She knew if Mordecai sent her in to see the king, her life would be in danger. She also knew that as a Jew, her life would be in danger. So wisely, she said to Mordecai, pray for 3 days. Then even if the king doesn't ask me to come in, I will take the chance and I will go in to see the king. Now there was a custom. If the king wanted to see you and you came without being asked, he would hold up his wand called a scepter. But if the scepter stayed in his lap and you came in without permission, that meant you died. So they prayed as a Jewish nation. And the 3rd day came. Esther went in to see the king. She dressed beautifully. And guess what? He held out the scepter to her, meaning, come closer. It's okay, even though she had not been invited. Now, Esther just didn't run right up to the king and say, your nasty buddy Haman made a plot against the Jews, and he's going to kill all my people, and I'm a Jew. No. Esther had great wisdom given to her from God. She said to the king, would you please come to a dinner that I'm going to give in your honor? Because there's something I'd like to discuss with you. And you can bring your buddy Haman too. And the king said, very well, we'll be there. So they got to the dinner, and they had a lovely time. And the king said, Esther, what was it you wanted to talk with me about? And she said, O king, live forever. I'd like to have another dinner tomorrow night. And I promise, if you come back to see me, I'll tell you what's on my mind. So the king did. They were at dinner. And when dinner was done, and they had had a lovely time, Esther told the king that her people were in danger. And the king said, oh, who are your people? And she said, the Jews. I'm Jewish. And he said, well, how are they in danger? And Esther told him about the plot that Haman had to kill all of the Jews. And it had been signed by the king himself, but that she was very sad that the king was going to see her killed. Well, the king was so angry because he realized Haman had plotted and had used the king to do this vile thing of wanting to kill a whole people group. He was so angry that he had Haman killed. Now, there was a problem. The king had actually signed the bad law that Haman had made up. So the king says, I can't retract the law. I can't take it back. And Esther said, well, let's do this. Since you can't take the law back, why don't we make it legal for my people to fight your soldiers and defend themselves? And then you could kind of tell your soldiers that if my people fight them, it's okay to give up. And so, on the given day that Haman had first set, a battle started, but it didn't go very far. And God rescued the Jews. And Mordecai had been right about the principle we found in the book of Esther. It had been for such a time as this that Esther was made the queen of Babylon. Now, in the packet that I gave you a couple weeks ago, you will find a crossword puzzle for older kids. If you're a younger child and you can't do a crossword puzzle, draw a picture of Queen Esther in all her beautiful robes and crown. Now, there's something else that you could do. There are lots of characters in this story. There's Mordecai and Esther. There's the king and there's Haman. So you could also play a quiz game. You could give a hint about one of the characters and then have your family guess which character from the story it is that you're talking about or you're thinking about. I hope you enjoyed our story of Esther. And once again, we've learned God's timing is absolutely perfect. Be blessed, be good, be obedient, be a joy to your family. Bye-bye.